My name is Kwame Pianim. I'm an economist and dabble occasionally in politics.
My name is Professor Janet Nikwe, and I'm retired now. I worked at Kolibu for about 40 years.
My name is Dorothy Yeboah-Menu. I'm the director of the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, University of Ghana.
My name is Alexander Kwejo Nyakon, a Ghanaian, of course, a biomedical scientist. I'm a product of the University of Ghana, and after graduation, I started working at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research.
My name is Margaret Elizabeth Nkrumah, and I am married to Professor Emeritus Francis Kwesi Nkrumah. And we would have been married 60 years next year.
Who is Emeritus Professor Francis Kwesi Nkrumah? Emeritus Professor Francis Kwesi Nkrumah is a healthcare practitioner specializing as a pediatrician. He is the eldest son of Ghana's first president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He attended St. Augustine's College in Cape Coast, where he earned his O and A-level certificates from 1950 to 1954. Professor Nkrumah earned his Doctor of Medicine degree at the University of Würzburg and Free University of Berlin, Germany from 1955 to 1961 for his preclinical and clinical training, respectively. He trained in pediatrics at the Children's Hospital Medical Center in Boston and went on to receive his Master of Public Health from the Harvard School of Public Health in 1969. He started his medical career as house officer at Start Kraken House, Medicine, Surgery, Obstetrics and Gynecology, Moabit in Berlin, Germany from May 1961 to July 1962. After that, he continued as a house officer at the University Children's Hospital in Berlin. In April 1963, he returned to Ghana on appointment as medical officer at the Kolibu Teaching Hospital until June 1965. In July 1965, he joined the Children's Hospital Medical Center at Harvard Medical School in Boston as an assistant resident officer pediatrics. He was promoted to the rank of Senior Assistant Resident Officer Pediatrics from July 1967 to June 1968. Emeritus Professor Nkrumah returned to Ghana to take up an appointment as a lecturer at the Department of Child Health, University of Ghana Medical School in July 1969. He rose through the ranks to become a senior lecturer March 1973, associate professor September 1976, and then full professor and head of Department of Child Health, University of Ghana Medical School from May 1980 to April 1983. In May 1983, Emeritus Professor Nkrumah joined the Department of Pediatrics and Child Health, Faculty of Medicine, University of Zimbabwe, where he was professor and academic head of department until 1990. In April 1990, he became the director of the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research at the University of Ghana, Lagos. In June 2002, he earned the title Emeritus Professor. Emeritus Professor Nkrumah has served as an advisor and expert to scientific and international groups in various capacities. He was chairman of the Task Force on Immunization in Africa, WHO Afro, a member of the Global Commission for Certification of Polio Eradication, WHO Geneva, chairman of the Board of Trustees, African Malaria Network Trust, Amanet, Dar es Salaam, a member of the governing board, Medicines for Malaria Venture, MMV, Geneva, and a member of the Strategic Advisory Council, Children's Vaccine Program at PATH, among other positions. He has served and continues to serve as a member of many medical boards, both in Ghana and abroad. He is a founding member of the Pediatrics Association of Ghana, a member of the Ghana Medical Association, and a member of the International Society of Hematology, and a member of the advisory board of the Ghana Medical Journal. He is a fellow of both the American Academy of Pediatrics and West African College of Physicians. He was elected to Fellowship of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences in 1983 and was Vice President of the Sciences Section.
I know him. Both he and the wife, who is an internationally accomplished educationist, Dr. and Mrs. Margaret Nkrumah, were our family friends. When my wife and I arrived here from Canada and I joined the Ministry of Finance, and later on in Ghana, all my life since the 1970, living family friends. We used to play tennis together. I always loved not to play against France, very competitive, and he had a wicked serve, you know.
I first came to Ghana in 1971 as a medical officer, and I was posted to the 3rd floor in the children's block. Then I went back to Britain to do my postgraduate exams, and I returned to Ghana in 1974. I was posted again to the 3rd floor, so Professor Nkrumah was my boss. And I must say he was a very firm but fair boss. And I learned a lot working on the ward with him.
First face-to-face meeting was sometimes, I think after May in 1994, when I returned from study leave from the United States. But before then, as a young person, I've known him from a distance, and I had admired him because at the time, I believe he was a lecturer at the University of Ghana Medical School, and he was leading research called Burkitt's lymphoma, which I didn't understand much about as a student. So meeting him in 1994 brought to reality somebody I had admired from a distance.
I met Professor Frances Nkrumah when, as a young lady after my BSc, I submitted an application to the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research for the position of a research assistant. And then he was part of the panel that interviewed me. And that's how I met Professor Nkrumah for the first time.
What I always think about and remember when I think about Francis is his humility. You know, the CPP group, when they wanted to really resurrect their party, started hounding Francis to become their leader, their flag bearer, their presidential candidate, to revitalize and bring CPP back to them. And they kept going to them, and they kept saying firmly, politely, that no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to get into politics.
He saw the example of his father, who lived his entire life for the progress of Ghana and Africa, and left not one building, not one account abroad, nothing. He was not interested in money. He was not interested in material possessions. And yet, how he was vilified and misrepresented till today.
When I reported to work after study leave, he called me to his office, and then he asked me about my interest. And then he also told me that he knows I was interested in diabetes mellitus, and that he wanted me to meet Professor A.G.B. Amwa, because he was doing similar work and wanted collaboration with the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, and he thought I would be best to meet him. So that's the nature of the working relationship that ensued after that event. It was cordial. He was a father, mentor, teacher. So that to me is Prof. Nkrumah.
This was in 1977. I got involved with research projects that he was embarked on. One very fascinating one was on neonatal jaundice, and I think probably the main thing learnt from that study was that babies with G6PD deficiency, which is a blood complaint, were very likely to get jaundice, and some of them ended up with brain damage due to kernicterus. So I helped him with that project.
He wrote, I think, to my memory, over 140 research papers on things like malaria, Burkitt's lymphoma, which is a particular cancer in children. And he was also the one who set up the program to deal with this childhood cancer of Burkitt's lymphoma in Ghana.
One project that I particularly enjoyed doing with Professor Nkrumah was to look at whether a form of immunotherapy would help to treat the Burkitt's lymphoma. As you know, immunotherapy is now at the forefront of treatment of cancer worldwide. And it was very interesting that the patients who received the immunotherapy did better than those who didn't. Before 1983, Prof. Nkrumah was head of the Child Health Department. But in around 1983, he left Ghana to work in Harare, Zimbabwe.
At the time that he came, it was the most opportune time for the University of Zimbabwe, because because of independence, most of the senior staff, the professors, chairmen of departments, and what have you, resigned. They didn't want to work in the black government, So our department had no senior, pediatrician or consultant. It was almost like a sinking ship without a captain. And that was when Professor Nkrumah came. So he filled in the gap, and he took charge of the department as a substantive professor of the department.
He returned to Ghana, I don't know the year, but he was seconded to Noguchi Memorial Institute, where he was head.
When I went to Noguchi, at that time we had only pathogen level 1 and 2, but Professor Nkrumah saw that years are coming ahead where a country just having pathogen level 1 and 2 is not enough. And so he had a vision, even when Ghana hasn't had some of these diseases. He approached the Japanese and developed the grant proposal that saw a great and massive expansion of Noguchi, and that led to the building of the first level 3 laboratory at Noguchi.
It was during his term, when I was also deputy to him, that Ghana had its first biosafety facility in the country, which was located at Noguchi. And it came with barrier experimental animal facility and a conference center.
He was working with World Health Organization to look at whether polio could be eradicated in Ghana. And various studies were done on children who had paralysis to look and see if polio was involved.
We had a study on measles in Asamankesi, which we went twice a month. And he went with us because he was interested in the work as a pediatrician, the measles. We're testing a new measles vaccine which could be given earlier in infancy than the 9 months. And he will go religiously with us twice a month to the field in Asamankesi.
And he didn't restrict himself to strictly medical solutions. He did write a lot of, let's say, appeals or information to ministries of health or ministers of health on, for instance, something like the fact that kenkey was being boiled in plastic, which was releasing toxins into the kenkey, and or even health-related things like the way we contaminate the environment, which also impacts on health. So it wasn't just specifically the medical side that he was interested in, but a holistic approach to the health of not just children, but the population.
It's an embodiment of what I'll call discipline, honesty, I'll say integrity. And he's the type who wants people to deliver. And he showed that by example.
Recently we had the COVID pandemic. Is the level 3 laboratories that he saw years ago that the institute needed level 3 laboratories. So I see that he was a visionary leader. I see someone who was interested in expansion and growth of an institution. Some people come to meet an institution, they leave it like as they came to me, but he came and he really almost doubled the infrastructure that he came to meet.
another outstanding contribution he made in Zimbabwe, which is also close to my heart, is the pediatric oncology ward. Before he came, any child who came in with a malignancy was admitted in any ward. You know, we have like 4 or 5 pediatric wards. So the ward on take for the day was the ward that would admit the child. But however, when Prof came, he decided to dedicate a ward for the oncology patients, hematology and oncology. And by doing that, he managed to set a standard of care for the children. There was protocol, people knew what to do, and that obviously improved the outcome. This particular ward is still existing right now. It is the only ward in the whole country that looks after children with cancer. And it is now considered as the center of excellence in the care of children with cancer.
My late sister, who was working at the Social Security Bank, had a premature child, and we were at Kolebu, and Francis heard where they quickly came, arranged for incubator, and then after the day, he called me and said, "Kwame, come and take your sister away," because that was during the military regime when things were scarce and Kolebu was in a mess. A lot of the doctors and nurses had escaped, voted with their feet, and they were not in Ghana. He said, "Come and take the child home, keep it warm and feed it." And he gave my wife Cornelia a pipette. So my sister would get the milk out into a can, and then my wife would put the pipette in and feed the child. Thanks to him, the child survived. The child was born little, like a hairless rat, very small. Is now 6'4".
Emeritus Professor Francis Kwesi Nkrumah is married to Dr. Margaret Nkrumah, a renowned educationist. They have 3 adult daughters. Professor Emeritus Francis Nkrumah has received many awards internationally and nationally, including the Order of the Volta, the highest award in Ghana.
My husband's life was family and health. I remember the days when we were in Kolebu, when sometimes the phones do not work. There were no mobiles in those days. And if they could not reach him on the phone, they would send the ambulance. And I would remember him pulling on his trousers over his pajamas, getting into the ambulance to go and see to an emergency at the Kolebu hospital. He once actually transfused blood because he's O positive, a universal donor. I'm sure it will be totally illegal in these days, but it saved a child's life in the hospital. So it wasn't just an academic pursuit or something he did for a profession. He was heart and soul into that job.
Francis is very kind, generous, and self-effacing. He doesn't like to be in the public limelight. And I'm sure he might have refused this honor being done to him publicly. That's who he is.
Emeritus Professor Nkrumah's interests in the health sector include health research and development, malaria and control of tropical endemic diseases, primary health care and child survival, expanded program on immunization and vaccine-preventable diseases.